Magus, web novel, Chapter 587, Fanning the Flames Part 1. Will you get back to Lucia now? Lith asked, hoping for a positive answer. I don't know. Celia bit her lower lip. I'd love to get some help and company. Living in the middle of nowhere is really tiring, but I have to endure it for the kids. I'll think about it as soon as they understand that they can't shapeshift in front of strangers. She sighed. Celia and Lith exchanged a long hug. She made him promise to come back before the end of winter. Remember that we are your friends, not just a deadline. If you come back only for the lizard, I'll never forgive you. After saying their goodbyes, Lith used the tower warp to get back in the north and reach Bellius with the army's gate. He needed to leave enough traces of his passage to never make people wonder where he disappeared from time to time. I would love to work on my forge mastering, but my talk with Camilla is long overdue. I can't delay it any longer without giving her a good reason. I can't just fit her in my spare time, I need to make time for her. He thought while knocking on her door. It was early enough in the morning for her to still be at home, but not so late that she had to rush to work. Lith had the keys to her apartment, but he wanted to make her a surprise. He rang the bell several times before he could hear an angry voice coming from behind the door. Look, pal, whatever you sell, I'm not buying. I was in the middle of breakfast and... Camilla choked on her words after watching through the peephole. I swear, this is the last time I make you a surprise. This is not how I pictured our reunion. The door opened abruptly and Camilla hugged him tightly for a few seconds, making sure he wasn't hurt. How did you get here so fast? I wasn't expecting you here before noon, she asked. Lith didn't reply. He silently stood there, returning her embrace. He had missed her warmth, the scent of her hair, and even the sound of her voice. The difference between speaking with her and her hologram was like heaven and earth. Is it too much to ask for a welcome home and a kiss? Lith's words made Camilla blush. He had just referred to her house as his own, as if to ask if he could live with her. Welcome home, she said before making him bend down to reach his lips. Come in, I want to hear all about Freya and Ryman. Camilla had no need to ask him about the events in Xantia because she already knew them from his daily reports. She was more interested in learning about his never-mentioned-before friend. They had breakfast together, while Lith told her how he and Protector had met and how he had become his magical father figure. He always referred to him as a vagrant mage. Exposing his identity as an emperor beast could endanger his family. Ryman had not betrayed Lith's secret and he was willing to do the same for him. Did you really fight together against your first abomination when you were just 12? She asked. Yes, my parents learned about it only a year later. That man is crazy, bringing a child to fight that kind of monster. No matter how much enthusiasm Lith used when reminiscing all the times he had fought or hunt alongside Protector. To her, he was just a nutjob who had endangered Lith's life multiple times. Without me, the Tron Woods would have been destroyed and maybe Lucia razed to the ground. He's not crazy. If we had never met, I would have probably died fighting the abomination alone. Lith said. You can keep trying to make it appear heroic later. I'm almost late for work. Camilla put her jacket on, giving him a last kiss before going to the door. I would love to have lunch together, but I have barely 10 minutes at random due to overwork. I'll be back for dinner. I want you to promise me that when I arrive home, I'll find you here and that you will not risk your life today. She grabbed the handle without turning it, waiting for his reply. I promise. Are you ready for our big talk? Lith asked. I was born ready. She blew him a kiss and left the apartment. Not risking your life is a big promise. What are we going to do all day? Sitting on a couch, Solus chuckled. I'm not tired. I had plenty of time to rest during the last few days. The materials I have requested should have already arrived home. Time to forge master us a few new toys. Lith used Bellis's gate to get to Darios, the capital of Distar's Marquisate, and then Solus's tower warp to arrive directly in the Tron Woods. His parents were overjoyed to have him back home. They showered him with affection and rebukes. This is becoming disturbing, son, Roz said. Why are you only getting missions where you risk your life at least once per day? I'm the ranger in charge of one of the most dangerous regions in the north, Dad. Not the captain of the sewing club. High risks mean high rewards. Speaking of rewards, I was expecting a few crates. Have they arrived already? Yes, dear. I've stored them for safekeeping. Alina handed him several dimensional rings. Are you eating properly? It seems that stress has made you lose weight. Maybe you should change your career plans. Please, Mom, Camilla is already bugging me. She says that I endanger my life like she changes her clothes. I don't need to hear the same song from you and Dad. You should listen to her. Camilla is a judicious woman. Will you have lunch with us? Lith nodded in reply and then he and Alina came out of their home to pass the crates from her dimensional rings to his pocket dimension. After that, he went to the village of Lucia to meet with Zekel Proudhammer. He was the village blacksmith and Rena's father-in-law. He had insisted for both Rena and his granddaughter, Laria, to keep the Verhan last name, making them Verhan Proudhammer. Lith's name was the best sword and shield any sane man could ask for. What can I do for you, dear Lith? Zekel loved all the privileges he had acquired through his son's marriage and was always eager to help Lith however he could. I need to make me a few items out of orichalcum. Do you know how to process it? Lith asked. No, I never heard about it outside of legends. Lith took out the first crate and a booklet about orichalcum. I gave it a read. It doesn't seem much different from silver. Is it as easy as it seems? Lith was so used to learn things with Solispedia that every second that Zekel spent reading the booklet seemed to last an hour to him. We can give it a try. We'll need a few ingredients for. Lith opened the crate, revealing that the ore had been delivered with all the necessary for its treatments. Okay, then we just have to wait for the furnace to reach the right temperature. I'll reread everything again while we wait. Wait, Lith hated that word. It usually implied wasting time he could use to do something else. It took him less than a minute to pulverize the ore with magic, another few minutes to prepare the rest of the ingredient, and then he could only stare at the flames. Fanning the Flames Part 2. Lith already had a copy of the booklet inside Solispedia, so he had no need to review the procedure again. Zekel had put a dirty silver ore inside the crucible to check the temperature of the furnace. Is it a problem if I use magic to speed things up? Lith asked. Be my guest, but remember that metals can evaporate. Finding the right temperature could require even more time since I know nothing about magic and you know nothing about metals. Zekel shrugged without taking his eyes off the booklet. Lith sighed. Even fire vision could be useless without proper knowledge. I need to start practicing now, or I'll need months to create even a single item. Here goes nothing, he thought after checking that no one was looking. Lith's throat became covered in black scales as he breathed origin flames inside the furnace. The blue magic flames overpowered the normal yellow ones, spreading an eerie light. What the heck have you done? Zekel jumped off his chair, trying to save the situation. The crucible, the coal, the silver ore, everything but the stones was engulfed in blue flames. Zekel took out the crucible using metal tongs, but even those caught fire. He kept his cool and took the crucible out of the furnace before splashing the tongs in a bucket of water. Is this normal? Lith asked, pointing at the flaming crucible. No, it's not. You should've. Oh, gods. Zekel couldn't believe his own eyes. His old, trustworthy tongs seemed now to be made of two different parts. One was blackened with dirt, time, and use, whereas the extremity that had been eaten by the flames was slightly smaller than he remembered it. He touched it with his fingers, he even hit the anvil with them to make sure of his findings. This doesn't make sense. I get that your flames destroy the dirt, but this? The metal seems to have been purified several times. What about this? Lith used spirit magic to have the crucible float in front of Zekel. The crucible was shiny as if someone had spent hours polishing it, and the silver ore was reduced to a small clump of metal. By the great hammer, I've never seen such pure silver. This is bad, Zekel said. Why bad? Isn't the purer the better? Lith asked. If you want to make an ornament, yes. If you need it for something that has a practical use, impurities aren't all bad. Pure metals are a myth. Sometimes, you have to add impurities to obtain the right balance between hardness and softness. Too much of the former and the final result will be brittle, too much of the latter and it bends just by watching at it. Lith had his doubts, but he couldn't experiment with origin flames in the presence of witnesses. He spent the rest of the morning with Zekel, learning how to smelt the orichalcum and how to turn it from as ductile as silver to harder than Damascus steel. The procedure was relatively simple. First, they picked a crucible big enough to contain quite some ore, but not so heavy that Lith couldn't easily lift it even when full. Zekel covered the bottom of the crucible with a special sand to prevent the ore from sticking. Then he prepared a mixture of ore, wheat flour, lard, and ashes. The flour would provide the carbon for the oxidation of impurities and heat the metal from the inside. The ashes served for both the oxidation and to make the impurities clump together. Much to Lith's surprise, the lard was used to help the ore form an ore bar and to help build up the heat. Once the crucible was filled with the mixture, Zekel covered its surface with more ash, sand, and cesium. The sand would prevent the metals from volatilizing, whereas the cesium was a substance necessary to keep the silver and the adamant in the ore together. They put the crucible inside the furnace and Lith used magic and fire vision under Zekel's supervision to spread the heat evenly until the ore looked like honey with no lumps of unmolten material. After pouring the liquid into a dry mortar, the ore quickly solidified into an upper part made of slag that looked like colored glass and a lower part made of metal. They separated the metal from the slag and repeated the process until it was pure. Only then did they add the last ingredient, darkestkin. It would make the adamant saturate the silver, giving to the metal ingot the properties of both metals. After they had treated a few batches of ore, Lith noticed that it was almost lunchtime. Can we stop here? I need you to make me a few things for me, Lith asked. Isn't it a bit late for that? You should have told me way earlier. Without a mold, there's not much I can do and you didn't give me enough notice to prepare anything. Do you still have the mold for the silver hammers you made me some time ago? Sure. Do you need a hammer? Zekel was surprised by his request. It couldn't be a weapon since Lith only used swords, nor something merely decorative. It would have been a waste of orichalcum and Lith was as thrifty as he was. More than one. I need to enchant them and failure is likely. I also need a chain mail and chain pants of orichalcum. The shape doesn't matter. I'm going to make a better skinwalker armor, Lith said. Zekel had enough time to prepare him a couple of hammers, everything else had to wait. Zekel would first finish to purify the rest of the orichalcum and then work on the items Lith had requested. Orichalcum is definitely different from other metals, Solis thought. Indeed, it's much lighter and durable of all the hammers we used so far. Lith had struck Zekel's anvil with it several times, yet the metal didn't bend nor did it get scratched. Not that, I mean that it has a very thin monoflow of its own. Solis's words shocked Lith. He activated life vision, noticing that Solis was actually wrong. It's not really a monoflow. Orichalcum seems to be able to draw the world energy and channel it. There's no life force nor mana core. Lith used invigoration to put his hypothesis to test. He discovered that he could now see inside the metal like it was a living being and even spot the residual impurities within. I wonder why we didn't notice that with Zolgrish's forge. Orichalcum is just silver and adamant, whereas the forge he gave us is made of pure adamant. It makes no sense that orichalcum has better properties than adamant, Lith thought. Probably because we were both blinded by all the magic stuff stored inside his lab. The place was about to blow up, we didn't have the time to use invigoration on the forge. Plus, after we escaped, we never took it out from our pocket dimension. Right after leaving Jambil we came to Xantia. We simply had no chance to give it a second look, Solus replied. It seems we have so much work to do and only 20 frigging days at our disposal. Lith thought.